Hi, welcome back. It is a gray, cool, and slightly drizzly day here on the island. So I thought it was the perfect day to lift and divide some grasses. I have these two clumps here of this kind of like bluey, silvery gray grass, and unfortunately I don't know what the name is, but I got like one big pot of it last year and I split it into these two and then a few others that are still like pretty small around. But I love the color. I love how it picks up from the spruce, and I love how it complements with some of the purpley colors too, like the kind of plums and reds. So anyway, it's amazing, and I would like more of it. So it's been in the ground for I think just over a year now. So it's pretty established, and each of the clumps, like I would say that that's probably the size of what the original clump was. So that half is now even bigger. So the plan was to dig these up and then I'm going to have a look at the roots and see how many plants I can get out of them. I would like to leave two kind of biggish clumps that I can plant back here because I just love how they look. And then I'm going to pot the rest up. If I end up with like another big one, I might see if there's a spot for that. Otherwise, I'm just going to pot them all up into pots and then those will root and then I can plant them out next spring. So for digging them up, I have my spade, and then I have a couple of pots. We'll see, maybe to dump them into until I'm like ready to place them again. And then I have like a few decorative rocks around, but I'm not like super worried. I'm just gonna dig around and give it a little bit of room. I'm not sure how big the roots have gotten, but I think the more I can keep the roots intact, the better it will be for when it's trying to acclimate to its new environment. And then in this area, when we moved in, it was completely overtaken with bamboo. So occasionally we do still get some, like more than a year later, we paid somebody to come and excavate it all out. We brought a new topsoil, and I still kind of do like whack-a-mole every now and again, but there's been way less coming up this year than last year, and I've heard it takes a few years to fully get rid of it. So anyway, so I'm only saying that I'm going to be aware as I'm digging this up if I notice any bamboo, just to make sure not to transport it anywhere else. Okay, sweet. It's kind of heavier than I thought. But the root ball is actually a little smaller. Gently lift up all the grass here. Okay, we definitely got some roots. If it was like a hot day, I'd put some water and maybe a little bit of soil there too. But because it's not, I think it'll be fine for a few minutes. Sweet. Now moving on to the second one. This one definitely seems more firmly rooted in here. Awesome. So I'm just going to leave the holes just like somewhat open so that I can replant when we're finished. Okay, sweet. So I'm going to bring these over here and then let's get dividing. Okay, so here are the grasses. And then I have a wheelbarrow full of soil. It's the same mix that we used in the veggie beds, so it's well draining and it's nutritious. So I think the grasses will be happy in it. And then I have a bunch of these pots. I always call these 1 gallon pots, but I'm not sure. They might actually be half gallons. So I don't think it actually says. In any case, I have a bunch of the pots, and I'll have bigger ones too if needed. So I kind of just want to open this up and see what we're looking at. So we can separate this into like pretty small pieces, but it takes a while for it to, or not like too long, but long enough. And I think I want it to look good kind of right away. So I think I might divide this one into two And I'm basically just using my thumbs to break it apart. And I'm looking for the natural gaps in the grass. So, um, where it, like clumps and then creates offshoots and clumps more. I'm trying to not necessarily split the clumps in half, but divide in between them. And I want to keep obviously just as much of the root ball intact as possible. This looks super severe. Okay. 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 Okay, so we have this guy here that has some roots, not like an amazing amount, but I think it's definitely enough to get it started. And then this one here, which is a little bit bigger and definitely has the better root system. So I think I'll probably put this one in the spot that's like a little bit more exposed, um, because it will be able to handle it a little better. And then the spot that's like a little bit shadier, I think will give this guy a little bit of a head start. But when I had originally divided it, the clumps were definitely no bigger than this. And they ended up, this big in a year. So I think he'll be good. One thing I like about these grasses as well is that they seem to not like spread too much. Like they'll do offshoots, but they stay close to the clump, so it ends up being pretty compact. After the bamboo trauma, I'm not looking for anything that has like, rhizomes that kind of race away. So just like with the other one, I'm looking for natural breaks in between different clumps. Okay, what do we get here? Okay, definitely some roots. So this one I'm just gonna like go ahead and plant right away. It doesn't have a lot of roots, but it should have enough to just get it started. So I normally fill the pot about halfway and then tilt it so that it's at an angle. And that way the roots can pretty much go all the way to the bottom. I have a feeling that when the roots kind of bend back up, whatever bends back up like doesn't do too well. So sweet. So there's the first one. Sweet. And then two more. This one has like a really nice root ball. So this one should do really well. As far as the time of year to do this, I think generally like fall and spring seem to be the time. Um, our 10-day forecast is looking like pretty cool actually, and we might even get some rain, which would be really exciting. So, if that's the case, or since that's the case, it felt like a safe time to do it. If we were coming into like more drought or a heat wave or something, I'd probably wait off a little while longer. I'm also seeing a lot of baby shoots, which is great because it means that they're actively growing, hopefully, and then hopefully that means that they'll. Um, oh, I hear the dogs coming out. Hello, Pops. Hey, Kazi. I only realized when I got up to reset the camera that this chair was actually kind of wet, so. Hmm. Now, I'm trying to decide because we have the two first clumps, but actually, this clump has a much better root system than this one. So I think I'm better off planting this one back in the ground. And then this one is a little bit of a mess. Um, but there's definitely still some roots here. So I'm going to do these two separately. And then we'll have 5 little ones that I can add for next year. And it definitely takes like time, but as long as you have time and you're not in a rush, this is definitely like the most economical way to increase your grasses, because I feel like grasses can be pretty expensive too, especially if you want to get one that's like, a good clumping grass and not something that will like just like take over everything, or make sure whatever you're getting isn't invasive where you live as well. This one's cute, but it doesn't have any roots, so nothing's going to come of that one. Um, awesome. So these are the five that I'll put in the greenhouse, give them a good chance to get their roots established, and then I'll add those back to the landscape next year. And basically, all I'm going to do with these guys is give them a good watering, make sure that they stay watered. And then I have my two clumps that I'm going to go plant back in the ground. I'm going to bring a pot of the good soil for each of them that I can top dress them with. So we'll head back over here. Okay, so the ones we end up with, I think, are pretty much the same. They both have a decent root system, so I don't think it matters too much where I put them. I'm going to leave the slightly better one for over there just because it gets more sun. And then the ideal way for me to plant this, I think, is to maintain the root structure as much as possible. So if I kind of put soil all around this and press it together, I think that it will lose some of the air pockets. So I think what I'd rather do is put it into the hole and then manually spread the roots around a little bit, and then just kind of like fluff a little bit of sand over it. Give it a little jiggle along the way, and basically try to keep as much of that fluffiness as possible. Putting in some of that good soil. And I don't want this planted too deeply either, because this area can kind of not exactly flood. This part, anyway, doesn't flood, but it can get a little bit waterlogged in winter. So if it's slightly proud of the ground, slightly above the ground, it has a better chance of surviving. Sweet. Just firming it around. Awesome. We'll get the other one in the ground, and then I'll get the watering can. Oh, the bamboo I was talking about. It's kind of hiding among the horsetails. So, this is what we're dealing with. So, although it was just this like little thing above the ground, it actually has this like huge underground rhizome, and I'm sure that that's connected to something else as well. And that's after getting the entire area excavated. So anyway, that's why I'm like very careful when I'm like digging something up from here, just to make sure that there's nothing bad in the roots. There's a few spots like that. We have one bed that has bindweed, so anything that comes out of that, or basically nothing comes out of that and goes elsewhere in the garden, it either goes to like the burn pile, maybe the compost, but generally the burn pile. And with bamboo as well, I wouldn't compost this. I guess it can take them a year, like this, out of the ground. It would take it a year to fully die, so I wouldn't risk it. So basically the same over here. I'm gonna lower it in, try to spread out the roots a little bit so that they're not just like all in one clump. Give them a little head start. And then just kind of sprinkle some of the soil in, give it a little shake. Add some of the good mix. Awesome. So, although these clumps are definitely smaller than when we started, the effect on the landscape isn't that severe considering we ended up with like 5 new plants out of it. So, I'm just gonna grab the hose and water them in really well just to get them reestablished. So for these ones, it kind of depends on the weather, but basically, I'll look after them for the rest of the season. I'll just water them once a week, make sure that the horsetail doesn't come back around it. And then from like after next year, like come spring, they'll be fully established. And like I hadn't watered these at all this year, and they were doing great. So, and it's been pretty dry. So I think they must be fairly drought tolerant. And I think there's like decent access. Like our soil can be a little clayey, so there should be decent access to water even in the summer once their roots go down deep enough. Okay, so that's the 2 big plants back in the ground, the 5 little ones in the greenhouse where they'll chill for the next kind of 6 months or so. And that's it for today. So thanks for coming along, and I'll catch you next time.